But then we took advantage in the second quarter, got some things going, and then we had this lull in the third quarter offensively. That was a little disappointing because we had some opportunities to convert, and we didn't. One thing we felt was we got to be better on third down, and that's kind of where a lot of the issues came.
Offense, it seems like you guys have found your rhythm in weeks 1 and week 7, where you've had a little bit longer time to prepare, and it's been a little bit maybe struggles on regular weeks. Is that a coincidence, you think, or is there something to that?
I think it's a coincidence more than anything else. Just because if you look at the total numbers, the numbers say, honestly, we did what we should have done. 362 yards of offense, and it's not 400 yards obviously, but we scored 17 points. Could we have scored a few more? Well, we could have, but we only had 61 plays to do it in. So I think it's just more of a coincidence, Sam, than it is anything else.
Thank you.
Hey, Ron, you had expressed some frustration afterwards with some of the, some of the players are going rogue, I guess, a little bit. How much of that is when you're looking at the upcoming schedule and you're just kind of saying, if you keep doing that, it's going to be a lot tougher against these teams?
I think that's got a little bit to do with it, John. But I just think, though, at this point, midway point of the season, you would like to think that we're going to do, what we're asked. We're going to do what we're coached. We're going to do what we should do because that's what our job requires. I mean, that's my whole point, because a couple of those things that when guys did their own thing, it hurt us. And that's what you got to be aware of. If you got 10 guys doing their job, one guy not, that one guy they're going to find. And you can't have that because that hurts.
And then what have you learned about this team over the last few weeks? And what things do you think you may still need to find out over the next 2 weeks? Again, Minnesota and Philly kind of obviously playing very well.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll have to match those guys, and that's one of the things that we're going to find out. Is can we match a team like that? Can we stand toe to toe? That'll be an interesting thing to watch. They're a very good football team, and they're kind of under the radar, which is crazy to me because they're 6-1. And their one loss being to Philly. I mean, that should tell you a little bit about who they are. But I do like our guys. I do like how resilient they are, John. I like, the way they scrap and fight. I mean, our defense has bowed its neck when it's had to. And last couple of weeks offensively, we've done the things that we've needed to give ourselves that chance to win.
Going back to John's question about players freelancing, do you feel like this has been a persistent issue this season? I know you've mentioned it in the past, but has it been ongoing this season, or is it mainly you just kind of saw it in this game just kind of pop up?
Say that again.
Going back to the players freelancing, how you're disappointed in that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it was unique to this game, or has it kind of been a persistent issue throughout the system?
It's a little here, a little there. And you can live with some of it. But when it comes up and it crops up at a critical situation, that can't happen. And we've talked about it. We got fortunate winning the game, because if we had lost this game, I mean, you could point directly to those instances on offense and defense, special teams, guys not doing their jobs the way they're supposed to. I mean, and that's something that I want to make a point of. I don't want this to continue, because you get a little bit of it, last week, a little bit of the week before, a little bit of the week before that, and you try to get it corrected, and you stress how important understanding the details of why you're doing your job the way you got to do it. And you want to make sure everybody understands, because you can't have that one guy, because trust me, they'll find him in this league. They'll find that one spot and make something of it.
Hey, Ron, Taylor saying yesterday that this is his favorite locker room that he's ever been in. Do you think that it's always been there? Has it been building over the season? And do you really think that these past couple of weeks, it's shown that they have a lot of chemistry and they've built these relationships?
I think I do think it's what's coming. I think it's a good group of young men. There's a group of guys that they like hanging around with each other. I mean, you look at the things that they've done and things that they do, and just being around it makes for a good locker room. And again, things can be very positive when you're winning, and so we just got to build on this. This is a great opportunity for us to build on.
The way you guys have been using Antonio Gibson, just using him more in space, does this make him, twice as effective, you think? I mean, is he really maximizing his skill set, I guess you would say?
Yes, he is. And Nikki, your question, I think it is giving him an opportunity to be even more dynamic. Because again, not only is there a threat that he's going to run the ball, but there's a threat that if he gets out into space and catches the ball, he can immediately impact the offense because he's already downfield, or he's out in space where he can make people miss. And that could be even more effective for our offense.
I know we ask you every Monday, but is this the week for Chase Young?
Yes. Now, all intents purposes, we're going to start on Wednesday with him. We'll start his clock. That's he had a final good visit with Doc. He was very, very pleased. Chase has been working out with the strength conditioning group the last few days, and he'll continue right into Wednesday, where he'll start with positional drills. And by doing so, he'll get an opportunity to be involved in all of the walkthroughs and installation periods that we have. And then we'll move him to the side once we get through the positional drills. He'll work on the side, and then we'll see how he is after the day, and then going into the next day, and that'll dictate what our next step is in terms of where he goes from there.
When we get to that point, I know obviously fans think of him as Chase Young, game wrecker. Is there maybe a need to temper expectations out of the gate that there's going to be a bit of a curve here?
Yeah, just because, again, he's going to have to get back into the mode. He's going to have to get back into condition. I mean, believe me, playing football is completely different from, rehabbing, obviously. And the more reps he can get on the practice field prior to stepping onto the game field would be very beneficial to him.
Hey, Ron, when you talk about like lack of kind of discipline or the breakdowns in certain parts, do you mean the defensive line, kind of the lack of discipline that you were talking about last year, or is this something new that you're seeing with the one guy sort of?
No, it's not nothing new. And it's not just defensive. And as I've said, you look at all three phases and you see somewhere along the line that somebody hasn't done, their job. And the truth is, whether it's not understanding what we're doing or not wanting to do what we want them to do or need them to do at that particular moment, I just want to make sure it's stressed that it's important that we understand why we do things, and we have to make sure we do these things because it gives us the best chance to be successful.
That said, you guys have been pretty effective in one-score games. Just what do you kind of make of that and your ability to kind of squeak these ones out?
Well, I think right now, if you can continue to run the ball and try to run the ball, the game plays to your tempo. And that's what we've been able to do the last few weeks is play to our tempo, and then get ourselves in position to make plays when we need them to be made. And having guys like Terry who step up and Curtis, step up, and then the backs, doing their thing, the tight end. I mean, when guys make plays in critical situations, and not just one guy, but a whole group of them, that gives you an opportunity to win the game because you've kept it close. You put yourself in position, and then you go ahead and make the plays.
Hey Ron, we always ask about the offensive line, and obviously there were some struggles at times this year with the pass protection, but with Taylor in there, at least the sacks are not there. What's your sense of how the offensive line is playing in general, and then relative to Taylor being in there?
Well, I think the thing that they've done the last couple of weeks with Taylor in there, obviously, has been able to understand that you have to continue to block. You have to continue to work on your guy, because with Taylor, he can keep the plays alive because of his tremendous mobility more than anything. That he's got this knack to be able to duck under and stuff like that, where a taller quarterback struggles a little bit with that. I think what we've really tried to do too in trying to run the ball, I think it's really played well into how our offensive line plays. They're a physical bunch, and I think that helps them as well. We played against, I think, really one of the really good defensive lines in this league against the Colts, as far as that's concerned. They had a couple of front line guys that were pretty doggone good, and their backups are pretty good as well.
Time for 3 more.
As for Taylor himself, obviously, he comes through with the last 2 drives. his ability to extend plays, as he mentioned, is impressive, but there's still all the limitations that people point to.
Yep.
Is he just a better quarterback now, or where do you view him any differently now after 2 games than maybe even last year?
No, I think there has been some improvement. I think there has been some growth. And I think a lot of it, you're starting to see it, and you see some of his, a little bit more patience on his part. You see him, I think, finishing up and with his progressions the way he need to. But I think some of his timing elements have gotten better compared to last year. And, again, we saw the difference in timing in the first half last week against Green Bay to how he finished the game in the second half. Well, this week it was a little bit similar. You saw a couple things that, he was off just a touch early on. He had a couple throws. One was a couple were behind. One was low that you'd like to get him to throw it up around the guy's, outside shoulder so he catches and you can turn and progress up the field. But then you see him as the game progresses and he's more and more comfortable. He's getting the ball out. He's getting the ball where he needs to throw it to whichever side, to leverage sides. And so you see that as far as he's concerned.
Do you have a feel for what Jahan Dotson's week is going to look like?
No, we'll figure that out probably Wednesday morning. Same thing with Cole Holcomb.
Hey, Ron, you mentioned Chase Young being eager to come back. Like, how does that work when you kind of give him the okay to start his clock? Do you tell him that? And if you did tell him that, like, what was his reaction?
He was fired up, Darren. He was really ready to go. He had that look on his, all right, I'm ready. But I had to tell him now, we got to follow the directions. We can't, push more for more until each step is cleared. So he understands that, but we got to make sure. And it was like with B-Rob, we told him, hey, we got a set number of plays for you, all set. And sure, he did the number of plays that we had set for him with the offense. Then he tried to jump in and show team a couple of times. And we're going to, we got to temper and got to make sure that Chase understands that, where he is, we've got to be very, very diligent and stick with it.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Charlie.